On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast, as Tesla CEO Elon Musk promised, FSD transfer has returned and it's back sooner than expected. Plus, Tesla is about to get some help building 4680 battery cells. Tesla is in talks with Michelin to test out airless tires and more. What's happening, friends? Ryan McCaffrey joining you, as always, every single Sunday for Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast. This is episode 465, publishing on June 30th, 2024. As always, recording here on late Friday night, in this case, June 28th. Alongside Daisy the Boxer, it is a beautiful summer day here. I hope you're having a great day or had a great day, depending what time of day you're listening to this. Some good news to start the podcast with. Remember that large staging lot of vandalized Cybertrucks that I was lamenting at the very end of last week's podcast? Well, good news. They were all completely cleaned off, no damage done. Video of the lot of now once again pristine Cybertrucks was posted to social media this past week. Knew this would probably be the case. Stainless steel rejects paint pretty well if you try to paint it. And you can use pretty much anything you want to try and get that paint off if paint should find its way onto the stainless steel without damaging the stainless steel. So I'm glad that no real damage came of this, and hopefully the new owners of those trucks only had their delivery dates postponed a day or two, if at all. Next up this week, a quick PSA. The X Takeover in-person event here in California is coming up soon. San Luis Obispo, California. I am hosting two panels on Saturday, which is day one of the two-day weekend event. Saturday also happens to be the same day that Tesla chief designer Franz von Holzhausen is giving his keynote. My panels come before his keynote. His keynote's towards the end of the day. And I wanted to let all of you know that there will be a Ride the Lightning listener meetup happening immediately after Franz's keynote at the end of the day. So looking at 6 p.m. for the listener meetup. It will be very graciously hosted at the adjacent Madonna Inn by Patreon backers and very long time awesome listeners, Victoria Iacovetto and Tesla Hitchhiker 42. So again, the X Takeover is July 27th and 28th at the Madonna Inn in San Luis Obispo, California. You can register for the event. It's not too late. Go to xtakeover.com, and we are getting pretty close. So in terms of the listener meetup, I think it's time to get a head count so that we have a good idea of how many folks are going to show up. So if you're planning to attend the X Takeover and you're interested in attending that listener meetup at the end of that first day, please email me, teslapodcast@gmail.com, and I will add you to a spreadsheet just for my own tracking purposes, and I will email everybody that has told me that they're going to come so that I can email out everybody the details and any updates that come along. Looking forward to seeing a bunch of you, meeting some of you for the first time, and some of you seeing again. Next up this week to kick off the show, the next version of FSD Supervised has been so close yet so far for a while for most of us, and now we've got an update on it from Elon Musk. So a few folks did get version 12.4 a good little while ago now, like 2-3 weeks ago, something like that. But then the rest of us didn't. Omar, who runs the Whole Mars Catalog account on X, posted, quote, "From now on, I am on a hunger strike until FSD 12.4 is released to the people." Elon responded to this post on X, suggesting that 12.4 won't be going out wide to everybody, and instead, it's going to be 12.4.2. Elon said, quote, 12.4.2 is much smoother. The challenge is keeping safety high while increasing ride comfort. The build moves to internal testing tomorrow, which he was referring to this past Wednesday as of that tweet. And so Omar posted again, because he has a lot of followers. So he posted again, quote tweeting Elon, summarizing for his followers, saying, "Hopefully in customers' hands over the weekend if all looks good, question mark?" And Elon kindly responded to that post saying, "Yeah, we just need to confirm there are no safety regressions," end quote. So if that holds, again, I'm recording here late Friday night, if that holds, and we know by now that FSD version releases are some of the slipperiest release dates that Tesla has, hopefully that means that those of you who've either purchased or subscribed to FSD Supervised are either receiving it now, about the time that you're hearing this podcast, or will get it in the next few days, myself included. I am eagerly anticipating this next version. I mean, to that point, I suppose this would probably be a good moment for me to just take a quick stop and talk about my impressions of the latest FSD versions, because I feel like I haven't really talked about what I think of FSD lately. And I have to say, it very much has gotten noticeably better. I'm somebody that's been lucky enough to be in the beta program for, I guess it's coming up on 3 years now. It was October of 2021 was when I first joined. And it certainly, I mean, it's obviously gotten noticeably better since then. So I've really had a chance to watch a lot of the progress, but particularly lately, going from 11 to 12, 12.3 to 12, hopefully for this weekend, question mark. But it has gotten a lot better. In fact, I had a corner case that I'm not sure if I've talked about here on the podcast before. I would jokingly refer to it as Ryan's right turn, with sincere apologies to the wonderful Chuck Cook in Florida and Chuck's famous unprotected left turn that even got famous enough to be referenced by Elon and make it into some release notes. Well, I've had a weird turn that I encounter on a fairly frequent basis near where I live, where you come up and first of all, it's a no right on red. So there is a dedicated right turn lane, but it's a no right on red. So first the car has to react to that. And for the longest time, it didn't. It would just stop, it would look to the left, and if it was clear, it would make that illegal right on red. So that has now been addressed. It has learned that logic, which is awesome. But then the part that really makes this particular turn tricky is this stretch of road before it comes to a three-way stop sign where my car needs to turn left. So it's a two-lane thing. So you turn right, and there's a right turn lane and a left turn lane. And for the longest time, the car would turn into the right lane because legally that's, I guess, what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to cross over a lane when you're making a right turn, but we all kind of naturally do it, and I doubt anybody's ever been pulled over for something like that because, if it's a safe turn, if it's on a green light or what have you, it's, no harm done there. But anyway, it would make the right turn into the right turn lane, but then go, oh shoot, I have to turn left immediately. And most versions, up until very recently, it would just freak out and not know what to do. It wouldn't even make it to the stop, let alone know that it could turn left. So it was just a mess for the longest time. Strange edge case, I know, but it was something that I encountered on my drives fairly often. But now it can do it. It has learned how to do this. It'll stop in the right turn lane, the initial right turn lane. It won't turn right on red if the light's red, but then when it goes green, it will just turn straight into the left turn lane. And by the way, when I say that it's short, that this little like mini road that just stops at the three-way stop sign, it's literally 2 car lengths long. Like, that's how strange and small this particular spot is. So it goes into the left turn lane as I need it to do, as it's supposed to per the navigation, and then it just stops and waits its turn for the three-way stop. Now, I will say it's a pretty hectic three-way stop where there's people making left turn. It's a little more chaotic than your typical three-way stop. And so, as we all know, it does stop for what I think most of us would say is too long at a stop sign. It's by NHTSA regulation, it has to make a complete and full stop. And so what I've seen happen is it makes that complete and full stop. Other people get frustrated with me because the car doesn't go immediately after it's stopped. And so somebody else will go, then the car starts to go and the car stops. And I still often intervene, but it's made it now like 90% of the way through this strange edge case turn. So I give it a lot of credit for that. But even outside of that weird edge case that I frequently run into, it's just really a lot more confident. I mean, when I first got it, if I go back 2.5, now almost 3 years, I really had to be on guard and mentally on edge all the time. Like, it wasn't pleasant to use at all. It was actually pretty stressful to use in the beginning, in the early days of the beta, because it could and would do unpredictable, terrible things on a regular basis, to the point where my wife told me, please don't use this while I'm in the car. And I could not blame her for that. But now I use it with her in the car all the time, and she pretty much never bats an eyelash anymore. So it's passing the spouse test much, much better. I mean, we've just come so far from it being unpredictable and stressful. I mean, one of my biggest complaints before version 12 was that it wouldn't think 2 moves ahead on the chessboard. For instance, there's another turn. I'm not going to go into grave detail on this one because you probably want me to move on here. But if it needed to make a right turn at a light where there are multiple right turn lanes, and then shortly after making that right turn, it needs to get to the left lane shortly thereafter, it wouldn't just get in the leftmost right turn lane to start with. It would get in the rightmost right turn lane, make the right turn, and then try to work its way over, which was, if it did it, which it usually would figure it out as long as other drivers were willing to let me in, it was still stressful. It should have just started in the leftmost right turn lane. Now it does that. So that is a huge thing for me, and I'm sure for all of you as well. Just the logic and the planning has improved a ton. It still tends to hug one edge of the lane more often than I'd like for no real good reason. Now, I know when you're going by a semi-truck, it'll nudge to the opposite side of the lane to give that semi a little more bit of a buffer, but it's still, even when it's not passing a semi-truck, I'd like it to center a bit more on curves specifically. Sometimes it does, but not every time. But and again, the other, I guess my other big complaint is that it just stops and pauses for way too long at those stop signs, which I know is partly because NHTSA is forcing that, but all in all, it has just made a ton of progress to the point where, as I talked about when the FSD price dropped, I now feel really good about paying $8,000 for it on my Cybertruck when I get that, hopefully by the end of the year or so. Whereas if it was still $12,000, I mean, I guess if it was still $12,000 today, I wouldn't do it. I mean, again, I think FSD's come a long way, and it's gonna keep getting better. But if it were still 12, I'd be out. But for 8 and what it's capable of and how it behaves now, 8,000, I'm in. Speaking of FSD, as promised by Elon at the shareholder meeting just 2 weeks ago, FSD transfer has returned, and it's done so a bit early, as it's still 1 week before 1 week when it got flipped on, when the switch got flipped on for transfer, 1 week before the end of Q2. So Elon had said next quarter. It turns out they've enabled it for the end of this quarter. So it's the same as before with one slight tweak. The deal is this. You would need to take delivery of a new 3Y, S, or X, Cybertruck not allowed here, between June 24th and August 31st. It is once again stackable with any and all other incentives, should they be available, and you don't have to trade in the existing car with FSD that you're transferring the FSD off of. So, in other words, you can move it from one Tesla in your household to a new one. if that's what you want to do. Now, the fact that it's only running for 2 months and not 3, not the entire quarter, is a bit of a bummer, no doubt, but I'm of two minds on this. One, Tesla just might not want to get into a situation which they have in the past with FSD transfer, where there's a car in transit that they can't get delivered to the customer until the next quarter, and then that creates a pressure point with Tesla where they have to take the hit in the new quarter, plus they'd said to everybody, well, no, it's only good through the end of the quarter, so it kind of puts them in a bit of a weird place. So I think this way, with arranging the dates as they currently have, they probably figure that they should be able to get everybody's transfer done before Q3 ends. But then my other thought is this. They might be leaving room to extend it one more month to the end of September, aka the end of Q3, as an extra demand lever if Q3 is looking a bit soft in the first couple months. And doing so would also be a pretty good look for them, right? Everybody would be super happy if Tesla said, all right, we're going to extend it one more month. That's going to make customers happy. So those are my two thoughts on the return of FSD transfer. Now, this question, this topic, was a natural fit for this week's Patreon poll question, which, a reminder, you can vote on for free. You don't have to be backing me on Patreon at all. You can just stop by patreon.com/Tesla podcast every week and vote in each week's Patreon poll. The poll question this week was simply, do you think FSD transfer will eventually become permanent? 64% of you said, kinda. I think FSD transfer will continue to be deployed as an occasional demand lever. And if I'm being honest, I think I'd probably have voted with the 64% of you on that. 19% of you said, no, I don't think Elon will ever sign off on permanent FSD transfer. 16% of you said, yes, I think FSD transfer will eventually become permanent. And one of the reasons, the reason that I wanted to ask this poll question now is because, Elon promised to bring it back one more quarter, but it's now also been available for the better part of the past year. Prior to that, Elon had pretty firmly said, no, we're not doing FSD transfer. So his mind changed on that for whatever reason, whether it was, they wanted to use it as a demand lever or what have you. Whatever the reason, his mind changed and he said, okay, we'll do it. So that's kind of why I figured I'd ask, do you think his mind will change again and that it could become permanent and become tied to your account at some point? Shout out to a couple of great commenters here. Les McKinnon said, it will return with a transfer fee of 25% of the current price. And I responded to Les saying, I'd be okay with that. If it's $2,000 to move FSD over to any new Tesla, and so, if your car gets totaled, you're not completely out of luck. And if you just buy a new one and you want to move it over, that's a nice little loyalty bonus where you're getting $6,000 off and just paying a 25% transfer fee. I would personally be okay with that. I'd be totally okay with that. So thank you to Les for kindly leaving that comment. And Ken Doman saying they need to treat it, which I don't disagree with this at all, they need to treat it the same way software purchases are handled on PCs and Macs, mobile devices, and game consoles. Once purchased, the software stays with the user's account and not the hardware. This would cement customer loyalty like nothing else. Totally agree, Ken. And I hope we get there someday, and I'm not going to rule out the possibility, but for now, no, but I hope eventually that becomes a yes. All right. Before I get to the rest of this week's main news topics, I hope all of you who are kindly supporting the podcast on Patreon at that $10 per month tier or higher enjoyed this week's lightning round mini episode. I do them every single week on Patreon for those generous folks supporting, I should say, at the $10 tier or higher. This one was about checking in on a few other non-Tesla EVs. So I had some thoughts about some other EVs that have been in the news recently for one reason or another. Rimac, Ford, I talked about Volvo, and there was one other one. Now I'm blanking on it. But, Rivian was in there too. So just had some thoughts on some other EVs and what's been going on with them lately. So I hope you'll listen to and enjoy that mini episode if you're very kindly giving back to the podcast through Patreon. If you'd like to join the Patreon, there are stackable perks depending on which tier you're kind enough to support at. That aforementioned $10 per month tier, that's the most popular one. If you do that, you will get not only early access to each week's episode, it's basically as soon as it's uploaded here on Friday night, you can download it and listen to it right away, and you get access to every single week's lightning round, including the entire backlog, which is now over 100 lightning rounds. So there's a ton of content up there. And by the way, if you are so kind as to do an annual pledge, just pledge once to cover an entire year, I say thank you for that by giving you a 10% discount on that annual pledge. Don't forget as well, there is a 7-day free trial available on that $10 per month tier. So if any of that sounds good to you, if this is the week where you say, you know what, yes, Ryan, I've been listening to the podcast for a long time, really enjoy it, really find it helpful and informative, you can support me on Patreon at patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. Okay, time to talk battery cells, 4680 battery cells specifically, where Tesla is about to get some help building them. I saw this story on Teslarati, who wrote, Tesla 4680 battery cell production by LG is set to start by August. On June 24th, industry sources shared that LG plans to start producing Tesla's 4680 cells at its Ochang Factor plant. I think that's supposed to be factory. Sorry, that's a typo. On Ochang Factory in South Korea by August. The South Korean supplier will be the first global battery maker to mass produce 4680 batteries. The LG Ochang factory's estimated initial production capacity is 8 gigawatt hours for the 4680 cells on an annual basis, enough to supply up to 110,000 electric vehicles. The battery supplier is expected to provide 4680 cells to Tesla and other automakers. Well, while this will no doubt help the Cybertruck production ramp, that's probably the first thing that comes into everybody's mind, mine included, when you hear this story. These cells are also no doubt going to go into the imminent production ramp of the Tesla Semi as well. And as such, if that's the case anyway, 8 gigawatt hours of cells being enough for 110,000 vehicles? Well, no, not if they're semi-trucks. The Cybertruck uses a 123 kilowatt hour battery pack, the largest of any of the consumer Tesla vehicles, passenger Tesla vehicles. And the Tesla Semi is rocking a approximately 900 kilowatt hour battery pack. As we know, the S3, X, and Y, the sexy lineup, doesn't use 4680s, and they likely won't anytime soon. At least not while the two biggest battery eaters, the two hungriest Teslas in the vehicle lineup, consume every single 4680 cell that both Tesla and its suppliers can get its hands on for the foreseeable future. But this is nevertheless great news for both the Cybertruck production ramp and the still not really started yet Tesla Semi production ramp. Next this week, as Daisy the Boxer snores to my left. Not quite loud enough to come through on the mic, I think, this time, but the show is just getting started, so she may snore louder yet. Anyway, Tesla is now manufacturing variants of the Model Y and Model 3 in the US that do and don't qualify for the $7,500 federal EV tax credit. I saw this posted by Tesla tipster Sawyer Merritt, who wrote, customers who claim eligibility for the credit will be matched to a VIN of a car that qualifies for the EV credit. Those who are not eligible or don't opt for the credit will get a non-qualifying VIN. Qualifying Model Y long range and Model 3 long ranges use Panasonic batteries, while non-qualifying ones use LG batteries, speaking of LG. So it seems like Tesla is using less expensive batteries in cars for customers who don't use the EV credit, allowing the company to save money. Tesla now lists specific inventory that qualifies and that doesn't qualify on its inventory page. Well, this seems, quite honestly, like it might be confusing to a lot of buyers. Heck, I'm a little confused. I mean, I guess it only applies if you're buying an inventory car, I think, at least for now. I mean, there is an added wrinkle to this that I can't personally verify, but this was in response to Sawyer's post, and I do trust the person saying what I'm about to tell you. Kyle Connor from Out of Spec, which is a YouTube channel very well known for doing EV reviews and lots of EV testing, Kyle responded to Sawyer's post that was sharing this news and said, quote, "Problem is the LG packs suck at charging and the Panasonic ones are much better. So say you qualify," he pleaded to folks. He followed that up by putting up his own post saying, "Make sure you do everything possible not to get the LG pack in your Tesla. Terrible charging performance. Say you qualify for the tax credit even if you don't. Do whatever it takes to get the Panasonic battery." End quote from Kyle. And then, I should add, Kyle linked to a video he did where he did a range test in a couple of different new Model 3s, saying, quote, "Proof that even the base LFP is a better road trip car than the long range with the LG pack." So again, I do trust Kyle. He has been doing great work on his channel for a very long time. In fact, I met him for the first time in person last summer at last year's Tesla Takeover event. I moderated a panel that he was on. Now, I'm not saying that you should lie about your tax credit status, but I'm also not sure what the solution is if you don't qualify for the tax credit, but you do enough road tripping and supercharging that the charging curve disparity that Kyle mentions will make a material difference for you. And on that note, for some people that will rarely ever road trip or supercharge the car, this might be a complete and total non-issue. So to each their own on this. Your mileage may vary. If you want to go watch Kyle's video, just go to YouTube and search Out of Spec, and I mean, I guess that'll bring you the channel, but you might as well also put in the name of the video when you're searching. So you could type Out of Spec, new Tesla Model 3 long range, 10% road trip. And it's EV Challenge is the rest of the name on that. Kind of a long video name. There's a lot to type in, but it's telling you exactly what the video is. So check that out if that is of interest. Next up, some not so great news here. Tesla is one of 3 EV brands to perform poorly in J.D. Power initial quality study. Saw this one on Teslarati as well this week, and they wrote, Tesla, Rivian, and Polestar performed terribly in J.D. Power's initial quality study for 2024. Ram was the best performing brand in this year's study, having 149 problems per 100 vehicles, which is how J.D. Power gauges initial quality. Chevrolet at 160, Hyundai 162, and Kia, right there at 163, finished second, third, and fourth, respectively. The average across the study was 195 problems per 100 vehicles. That brings us to the performances of Rivian, Tesla, and Polestar. Rivian and Tesla both had 266 problems per 100 vehicles, which was tied for the third worst behind Dodge, who had 301, which, side note, kind of weird that Dodge is at 301 right at the bottom of the list, or almost the bottom of the list, and yet Ram, the Ram truck, a Dodge brand, is in the lead. I guess the the Ram assembly, production, manufacturing team is the A team over at Stellantis, I suppose. Anyway, Rivian and Tesla both had 266 problems per 100 vehicles, tied for third worst behind Dodge at 301 and Polestar at 316. All three EV brands were listed below the actual study results because J.D. Power says they are, quote, not rank eligible because it does not meet study award criteria. And in fact, J.D. Power had this to say about battery electric vehicles, and specifically Tesla, quote, gas and diesel-powered vehicles average 180 problems per 100 this year, while battery electric vehicles are 86 points higher at 266. While there are no notable improvements on BEV quality this year, the gap between Tesla's quality and that of traditional OEMs' BEV quality has closed, with both at 266. In the past, Tesla has performed better, but that is not the case this year, and the removal of traditional feature controls such as turn signals and wiper stalks has not been well received by Tesla customers, so saith J.D. Power. Well, this is certainly not something that you want to hear as either a Tesla fan or a Tesla owner or as a person rooting for the EV movement. Remember, though, that initial quality is the initial impression. So initial fit and finish, that kind of thing. Nothing about maintenance, longer term. So when J.D. Power quotes things like the removal of the stalks, that counts as an initial quality thing. It's like a first impression. And quite honestly, most of us probably would agree that we knew this would happen. In fact, I've talked to plenty of you who have strong, sometimes negative feelings about the removal of the stalks from the S, X, and now the 3 Fresh as well, and no doubt the Model Y next year. I mean, I personally, I think I've said this before, but I'm still undecided on the removal of the stalks on anything but the Cybertruck. So, Cybertruck is the one that I've spent considerable time with. Couple hundred miles, lived with it for a few days. And as I said, back when I did the Cybertruck review after that 3-day weekend with the truck, no stalks make sense. It works on the Cybertruck because thanks to steer-by-wire, you never have to take your hands off the steering wheel to make a full turn. And thus you can easily always just extend your thumb out, hit that left or right turn signal button without any real hassle at all. Sure, there's still a slight adjustment because we've been using stalks for turn signals our entire driving lives, but I got pretty used to the Cybertruck steering squircle thanks to the steer-by-wire and those turn signal buttons quite quickly. But again, on S and X and the new 3 Fresh, I haven't really had a chance to experience a good variety of turns, let alone drive long enough in any of those cars to get used to it. I've driven the new S a little bit, I've driven the new X less, and I've not driven the 3 Fresh at all as of yet. As I've told you, I've had a couple opportunities to test drive the new Model 3, but I am purposely waiting until test drives of the Performance, the new Performance 3, are available because I want to do the apples-to-apples comparison to my car. But anyway, that's neither here nor there for this. But plenty of owners out there say about the removal of the stalks that you do get used to it. Now, still, if there's a negativity that shows up in this J.D. Power initial quality survey, that's still going to make sense since the survey would be taken before you'd have had a chance to get used to it. Now, in the general build quality department, my anecdotal experience / opinion is that Tesla is clearly getting better. Now, how that compares to other cars, I'm not really in a position to say, but I stare at Teslas all the time, be it my own or just ones I see in parking lots. I'm always looking over new Teslas and seeing seeing how they're put together, seeing how they look. And Tesla is clearly getting better. I mean, the Model Ys that I see all over the place around here, including new ones in my neighborhood all the time, the Y is pretty dialed in. In my humble opinion, the Model Y looks great these days in terms of panel alignment, paint quality, etc. And the 3 Freshes that I've seen all look like they're put together much, much better than my 2018 Model 3 is, which, to be clear, I'm not saying my 2018 Model 3 is poorly put together, that it has poor fit and finish, but there are some clear flaws in the fit and in the actual finish as well. My car is definitely not perfect, and I think the cars coming out of Fremont now are much, much better. And to that end, I expect that Tesla will improve their score on this J.D. Power initial quality ranking, and they will, should they end up ranked on this list to qualify to be on the rankings proper, I think they will improve. And honestly, I hope Rivian and Polestar improve as well. We want EVs to do well, to be good, to be, we don't want somebody to turn down an EV because they think the fit and finish of the car is subpar, right? If they're, we don't want somebody to go jump back in a new gas car because they were on the fence about a Tesla or a Rivian or a Polestar, but thought it was, a little poorly put together in the fit and finish department. We don't want that. So I'm rooting for everybody here to get better. And let's see, 2 more stories for you this week. The first one is this. We move from, again, that kind of disappointing news to news of the weird. A World War II bomb discovered, yes, you heard that correctly, a World War II bomb discovered near Giga Berlin is going to be safely detonated. In fact, by the time you hear this podcast, it will have already happened. I saw this on Drive Tesla Canada, who wrote, the 250-kilogram English-made bomb discovered in the forested area earmarked for Giga Berlin's expansion is set to be safely detonated on site Saturday, meaning, again, the past, as most of you hear this. It was found during routine checks for munitions in the area where Tesla plans to lay tracks for a new freight station. These checks, conducted by ammunition recovery companies, are standard practice in many parts of Europe that saw heavy bombing during World War II. The Public Order Office of Grünheide and the Brandenburg Interior Ministry have confirmed that the bomb cannot be transported due to its condition and must be detonated in place, reports RBB, which is a German outlet. Authorities have established an exclusion zone, likely extending up to 1 kilometer from the detonation site to ensure public safety. Additionally, 2 state roads will be closed for the duration of the operation. The controlled detonation will not affect Tesla's production at Giga Berlin, as no production was scheduled for Saturday. The presence of this bomb has heightened safety concerns, not just for the Tesla factory and its workforce, but also for the activists who've been protesting in the same forest. Since February, these activists have set up a camp of tree houses to oppose Tesla's expansion, which they argue threatens local biodiversity and forest land. However, despite the bomb threat, authorities say the protest camp will not be forcibly evacuated, allowing the activists to choose whether to remain in the area or temporarily relocate during the detonation. So, this is something that I never thought I'd ever be talking about on this podcast, and that being detonating bombs on Tesla property. And quite honestly, I hope it's the first and last time that I'm ever talking about this in any context, World War II relic or otherwise. It's pretty wild to me that 80 years after World War II, that anyone anywhere is still finding potentially live, potentially dangerous explosives. And I will say that I hope that these so-called activists who as I've said before when talking about the story of them attacking Giga Berlin, I am of the opinion that they are rather misguided and targeting the wrong company, but that said, I do hope that they're smart enough to evacuate to a safe distance. Finally this week, Tesla is in discussions with Michelin to test the company's next-generation airless tires, as was recently confirmed by the company's top executive in an interview. One more tip of the cap to Teslarati this week, who wrote, Michelin CEO Florent Menegaux, recently confirmed the company's discussions about testing the upcoming UPTIS, which is an acronym standing for Unique Puncture-Proof Tire System, tires on Tesla's vehicles as detailed in a report from Not a Tesla app. The tires are expected to last as much as 3 times the life of a normal tire, in addition to being resistant to punctures due to their flexible open cell design. The flexibility of the rubber tread on the UPTIS tires allows them to naturally bend around road obstacles, and being that they don't use air, even obstacles that do manage to puncture won't inhibit the ability to drive. They're also expected to help prevent road pollution from tread wear and to cut down on tire waste overall. The tire company has already been testing the next generation airless tire on the Chevy Bolt and has been talking to GM about testing them out on the company's other EVs. The UPTIS tires are still in a prototype phase, and it's not entirely clear when they'll become available for buyers, though Not a Tesla app says they could hit the market by the end of this year. Thank you to Teslarati and to Not a Tesla app. So, how cool is this? An airless tire that would be more or less immune to punctures, or at least, if not completely immune to punctures, immune to being disabled by them, and would last, as a bonus basically, they'd last way longer than a traditional tire too. This to me is one of those things that just sounds like science fiction, and I love it. I'll say kudos to GM for testing it out with the Bolt, and quite honestly, it's no surprise that Tesla might soon join them in testing this new tire tech, because who is always willing to try something new and to try to chase a new efficiency? It's Tesla. In fact, at the upcoming X takeover that I mentioned at the top of the podcast, I will be interviewing one of the tire engineers from Michelin, so I will be sure, you can guarantee that I'm going to ask about these airless tires. All right, that is everything for you in another busy week of Tesla news, but stick with me. There is plenty more Ride the Lightning coming up, including your Ride the Lightning hotline phone calls coming up soon.
Hi, this is Franz von Holzhausen, and you're listening to Ride the Lightning with Ryan McCaffrey, the Tesla unofficial podcast.
Before I get to your phone calls in the Ride the Lightning hotline, I've got a question for you. Would you like to win a Tesla? And yes, that includes a Cybertruck or $50,000 cash. The 10th annual Tesla raffle from Chesed Chicago is back. Now, you may remember this from when I mentioned it last year, and a bunch of you bought raffle tickets for that one. All went to a good cause. This year, instead of choosing from 4 Teslas or $50,000 cash, from one of 4 Teslas, you can choose from any of the 5 if you win. The proceeds from the raffle once again go to a great cause, Chesed Chicago, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping families in crisis. They're funding 80-plus programs and services right now, and their goal is helping families get back on their feet by offering goods and services like food, furniture, job placement, navigating government funding, and much more. For your chance to win, head to ccraffle.com, where you can get $25 off 2 tickets by using the promo code RTL. You gotta hurry, tickets are limited. Only 9,999 will be sold, so get your tickets today. And as an early bird bonus, in addition to your chance to win that Tesla or the cash, if you buy 2 or more tickets before July 11th, you'll be automatically added into a second drawing for the chance to win a bottle of Tesla tequila, which they value at $1,600. I haven't checked the eBay prices, but I wouldn't be surprised. Valued at $1,600 for no extra charge. For your chance to win, head to ccraffle.com where you can get $25 off 2 tickets or $500 off of 15 tickets by using the promo code RTL. And I hope one of you out there wins a Tesla. And of course, my friends at Accelerate Auto, I want to mention them as well. If you are thinking about keeping your Tesla for a while, meaning past the factory warranty period, you may want to consider an XCare extended warranty coverage plan from Accelerate Auto. It's flexible. You can go up to 10 years and up to 125,000 miles after your factory warranty is up. I have a 3-year, 40,000-mile plan on my car. You can also purchase it for any Tesla, no matter if you bought the car new from Tesla or bought it somewhere else. So that's all good. Plus, $100 deductible, 24/7 roadside assistance, and XCare also offers rental reimbursement and trip interruption coverage, which is a nice bonus as well. Don't forget, you can also do, or just by itself, do the battery and drivetrain policy. So if you want to do the whole car without the battery and drivetrain covered, you can do that. If you want to do just the battery and drivetrain, you can do that. If you want to do everything, you can also do that. That's the point of the XCare plan, is it's flexible, so hopefully it works for you. Go to accelerateauto.com/xcare. That's XCELERATEAUTO.com/XCARE. And don't forget to use the discount code LIGHTNING for $100 off your purchase. I'm not sure why my face just froze there for a second. Lightning will get you $100 off your purchase. That's the discount code. So check them out, Accelerate Auto. All right, it is time for your phone calls in the Ride the Lightning hotline. If you've got a question, comment, or discussion topic for the podcast, you can call in and leave a message with me anytime and have a chance to be featured on an upcoming episode. There are 2 easy ways to call in. Either use your smartphone's built-in voice recording software, record your question. Please try to keep your call to 90 seconds or less so that I can get to as many callers each week as possible. And then email that file that you've recorded to me at teslapodcast@gmail.com. Alternatively, you can take that same 90-second or less call and just call in and leave a message. On the Ride the Lightning hotline, it's super easy. It's open 24/7. Just dial 1-888-989-8752. Again, that's 1-888-989-TSLA. And if you know someone special with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they are special. The recordings can be podcasted or put them onto a keepsake. Visit lifeonrecord.com to learn more. First up here is Stefan from Monterey.
Hey Ryan, this is Stefan from Monterey. I have a question for you. During the earnings call, Elon Musk said that he was going to be allowing a transfer of the full self-driving one more time next quarter, which is good. Do you think that's also going to include the lifetime free supercharging? I know they did that earlier in the year where they had those 2 things together. I've got a car, a 2018 Model 3 that has the full self-driving and the unlimited supercharging, lifetime supercharging, and I'd like to transfer them both. I just wanted to know what you thought. Thank you. Bye.
Hey, Stefan. Well, as you heard earlier in the podcast, the transfer program has already begun a bit earlier than expected. And at least as of now, there is no lifetime supercharging transfer paired with it as well. But I suppose it's possible to piggyback on my own theory from earlier that if Tesla needs another demand lever for September as an end-of-quarter push, they could extend FSD transfer for another month, and I suppose they could also tack on free lifetime supercharging transfer as an extra incentive, for those longer-term Tesla owners like yourself that have that free lifetime supercharging. Do I think it'll happen? Honestly, I would lean towards no, but I do think there's a reasonable chance it could. I would put it, if you want to put numbers on it, I'd put it at 40% yes chance, 60% no. That's my gut feeling on it, at least as of right now. But fingers crossed they do it, and that you've got yourself a little extra motivation to transfer both of your perks into a new Tesla. Thank you, as always, for your calls. I do appreciate them. Next up, here's Ryan from Nevada, also on the subject of FSD transfer.
Hello, Ryan. Ryan from Nevada calling. I had one question for you that I was just thought of as I'm listening to your most recent Ride the Lightning podcast, and that was regarding the FSD transfer. So we know that Elon extended it for another quarter, but he on stage at the shareholder meeting was very reluctant to, maybe I shouldn't say reluctant, but he was certainly giving hints that it wasn't an easy thing to do. And I was wondering if, like, to me, it would be easy, right? Just have the FSD linked to your name, and then whatever car you're driving is activated because it's all software related. But he made it sound like, or at least he was giving hints that it was not an easy thing to do. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that, about why. Why is this FSD transfer such a difficult thing for Tesla to do? To just have the software package stay with the owner's name. So I was wondering if you could give any thoughts on that. Love the show.
Greetings, fellow Ryan. Well, my interpretation of Elon's comment about FSD transfer being difficult was that he was referring to it kind of clogging up the back end of their sales and delivery process. I mean, Tesla, as we all know, is a company that searches for every efficiency it can get in all aspects of its business. And they've done a great job of that in sales by cutting out the dealer model that everybody hates and just selling cars directly and, quite frankly, pretty easily to customers through its website. Now, delivery efficiency, I don't feel like I'm as qualified to speak to anymore, because my one and only experience with having a Tesla delivered was almost 6 years ago now, and Tesla's grown and changed a lot in that time. But I very much believe that he was referring to having to, for a lack of a better term, hack the FSD transfer into their delivery system, a system that was no doubt never designed to accommodate FSD transfer in the first place. I'm totally with you, as is no doubt everybody listening to this, that it should just live on your account rather than on your car and be applicable to whichever Tesla you're driving, whether you own 1 or 2 or 3 or however many. I mean, that would be awesome. And I agree. I think Tesla would sell a lot more FSD licenses that way. And like I was saying earlier, you never know. Elon, as I said, had always sworn off FSD transfers until he didn't, basically. And now we've had it for the better part of the past year. So never say never with Tesla. There's time for one more call this week. It comes from James in Anderson, Indiana.
Hey, Ryan, longtime listener and brand new Tesla owner. My wife and I ordered a Model Y at the end of May and decided to take a demo Y instead, saving a ton of money. Got a lot more options than what we had ordered, and we are beyond happy. This is like the craziest car I've ever owned, and it's car number 40 for me, and I'm your age. But anyway, just wanted to thank you for all the years now of great content and all the information, as well as everyone that's called in and contributed. I did have one thing, a feature I would like to see for those of us that still have stocks, because the future is stockless. Why not put an option to go stockless, like where you have the slider on the screen to take off? So that's all I got, and I made it under 90 seconds.
You did indeed, James. In fact, with 21 seconds to spare. Nicely done. I appreciate that. And I do really appreciate your kind words, by the way, as well. Now, first, to answer your question, you are not the first person who has mentioned this to me. And I confess, I never thought about it, but it makes perfect sense. Tesla is continuing to hone and improve its auto-sensing gear selector that they are using on SX, Cybertruck, and 3. So I'm with you. Why not offer the option on the cars with the stalks, like mine, so that I could choose from either the stalk or the screen-based gear selector and also try out that auto-sensing gear selector? You would think that Tesla might want that extra training data, right? Now, second, before I let you go here, James, I do have to ask you. You said you've owned 40 cars, which is absolutely amazing. I've got to know how you would rank them, or at least maybe to be a little quicker, maybe give me a top 5. So if you get a chance, no rush, not even for the podcast necessarily, just if you want to call back or just email me sometime, I would love to hear that, because that is just that sounds like paradise to me, have the privilege to own that many cars, because by contrast, since you said that you're the same age that I am, I've had 4 cars. I've had an actual order of magnitude fewer cars, and I feel, very lucky to have had those cars. And the 4th one is my Model 3, so I'm jealous. I think that's just awesome, man. That's super cool. James, thank you very much for your call. Thank you to everybody that kindly took the time to call in. I promise I will get to more of your Ride the Lightning hotline phone calls next week. And if you'd like to call in, either in response to another caller or something I've said to another caller or something you heard earlier on the podcast, you can do that pretty easily. There are those 2 easy ways that I gave you at the top of this segment. Well, that may be it for the Ride the Lightning hotline this week, but the podcast is not quite over yet. Stick around. I've got your pro tip of the week and a bit more coming up next.
This is Steve Downs, the voice of Master Chief Sierra 117. You're listening to Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast. That Cybertruck looks a lot like a warthog, doesn't it? Master Chief, out.
I had a fantastic time at the annual Tesla Owners of Silicon Valley Teslas and Tacos event last weekend, which was held at a detailing shop in the middle of the peninsula, kind of halfway between San Francisco and San Jose. The shop was completely filled with wrapped Cybertrucks. So there were a bunch of them on hand. In fact, I took a bunch of pictures here. So they're sort of the star of the show was this one that had a Back to the Future time machine wrap. So it was literally wrapped as if it was the DeLorean time machine, complete with the keyhole for the DeLorean. The DeLorean door was on the wrap, as were the sort of the cutout lines for where the gull-wing door would be. And then the lightning going across as if it was about to go back through time, and all the wiring, that was on the thing going around the front of it and back of it as well. And I have to say, as a longtime DeLorean owner and someone for whom the DeLorean means a lot, I'll just say I found it kind of hilariously ironic that the wrap, this Back to the Future, this time machine wrap, was completely covering the one thing that the Cybertruck has in common with the DeLorean. It was completely covering the stainless steel. There wasn't an inch of stainless steel showing on this truck. Or at least I don't see any. Maybe the top of the hood, maybe, I don't know, but that was about it. So that I got a little bit of a chuckle out of. I can't say I would do that to my Cybertruck, but that's the fun part of Cybertrucks is they're like just blank canvases, which you can do anything you like to. The Halo-themed Warthog Cybertruck wrap that I had seen at the last club event at Unplugged Performance, that was there. I talked to the owners of that for a good while. Super nice people, and they've been having fun with that one. But there were some other interesting wraps too. There was one that was kind of a warm bronze almost, that was pretty interesting. Plus a matte gray, a super dark green, which funny enough, there's a picture on my Instagram. I had parked next to that exact super dark green wrapped Cybertruck in another town not too far from there a few weeks ago. So that was just one small world, I guess. But tons of Cybertrucks, lots of wonderful people that I chatted with. Just had a really good time at that. So if you said hi to me, hi. Thanks for listening to the podcast. I appreciate it. All right. Time for your pro tip of the week. It comes from Julio in Madrid, Spain.
Hi, Ryan. This is Julio calling from Madrid, Spain. I have a pro tip that I stumbled upon by chance, and I hope it may be of use to other fellow Tesla owners too. With the spring update, I noticed that the blinker camera image is lower than it was, and when on autopilot, it blocks most of the visualization. I like to see the visualization when on autopilot in the highway, so I moved it to the top left of the map, and I noticed then that the car allows you to have the camera image in two different positions, one when in autopilot and one when in manual driving. So now I have the blinker camera on the map without blocking the visualization when I'm driving on autopilot, and I have it closer to me below the speedometer when on manual driving. I'm attaching a couple of pictures to the email with a pro tip in case you can give a better explanation. Many thanks for the great podcast. Take care. Bye.
You described it perfectly, Julio, and this is a great reminder for everyone that you do have a choice of how far to the left of the screen that you'd like the turn signal camera to be when you're on autopilot. Thank you very much for your call. And if anybody else out there has a good pro tip of the week that you'd like to share with me and your fellow Tesla owners and enthusiasts, you can send that in the same way that you send in the regular Ride the Lightning hotline calls, which I described the process for. Two processes. You have a choice. Described that just a little while ago. Oh, one other quick thing actually that I forgot to mention about the Teslas and Tacos Club event. Tesla was there with a Cybertruck to look at, and then a Model 3 Performance, sadly also only to look at. I asked if there was a test drive available that day. That would have really made my day, but not yet. But it was, you could look over the car, you could check it out, and it was a stealth gray, and not that that matters for what I'm about to say, but just to describe it. But I was just giving it a look over because I have seen a couple of new Model 3 Performances, but it was nice to see it out in the sun, because the multi-coat red one that when I told you about seeing it in person for the first time down at the Palo Alto store, that of course was inside the store. So it was just cool to see it out in the sun, outside in the real world. And one thing I noticed was the new performance symbol on the back, which is not the plaid logo, but just the new performance. It's like the Lightspeed logo from Spaceballs, just a bunch of lines sort of heading towards a horizon point in the center of the badge. I hadn't realized before that it's actually got a 3D texture to it. It's not just a completely flat badge. Some of the lines kind of have they rise up off the badge, which I thought was pretty cool. That was a neat thing, and it made me think, well, wait a minute, does the plaid badge have a kind of 3D thing going on with it? Does it come off the badge as well? And I'm not actually sure, because while again I've had the privilege a couple times to drive a plaid, I haven't taken that close of a look at the plaid badge. So just a neat little thing that I thought, anyway, like the littlest of little things about the new Model 3 Performance. All right. Before I get on out of here for this week, I want to mention some friends of the podcast that hopefully can help you out one way or another sooner or later. Most of them are offering discounts, so tune in for those here as I round out the podcast over these next few minutes. I'll start with abstractocean.com. They've got a million different awesome aftermarket accessories for all of the Teslas, yes, including the Cybertruck. So whichever Tesla you own, just go to abstractocean.com, click on your Tesla, whichever one you have at the top of the page, and then the site will show you all of the products available for your car. Maybe you like the tempered glass screen protector. That's a 4th generation custom fit thing. It's the same stuff used in Gorilla Glass. Just a really nice custom piece that's going to last, going to look good, going to protect your screen. Maybe you want an interior lighting kit. Maybe, there's a million different things. You got to take a look. Again, it's abstractocean.com. And there is a coupon code for those of you ordering for the first time. That code is RTL Podcast, all one word, no spaces. And it's good for 15% off. That's a lot. Thank you to Abstract Ocean for just continuing to offer that to the Ride the Lightning audience. I sincerely appreciate it. Next up is SnapPlate. And the newer SnapPlate Plus, you can get either of them at everyamp.com/RTL. And the Every Amp folks are now kindly offering a discount on either of those as well. The coupon code for this one is RTL. So again, go to everyamp.com/RTL and use the coupon code RTL. If you're not familiar with the SnapPlate or the newer SnapPlate Plus, this is the front license plate bracket that I prefer, that I recommend, rather than the Tesla one, which will stick to your car with automotive tape. Therefore, if you ever want to get it off, I can guarantee you it's not going to go great. It's either going to take forever if you're sort of dental flossing it away, or worse, you might leave behind scratches or something. So just don't even put on the Tesla one that comes with your car. Go to everyamp.com/RTL, get a SnapPlate. And if you want the SnapPlate Plus, that one is strength optimized with hardened features for maximum strength, whereas the regular SnapPlate is safety optimized with breakaway features to sacrifice itself in a worst case scenario. Both are made from recycled, made in the USA plastics with stainless steel reinforcements. Next up, BudgetSafeSolar.com. Keep them on your short list if you're thinking about going with solar for your home or business. They do operate nationwide, so wherever you're at here in the US, you can call up or get in touch with BudgetSafeSolar.com and potentially do an installation with them. Let me see. I know we were having a nice sunny day today. Where are we at? All right, 40.9 is where we ended. It's dark now. So not quite the high for the year. That was set, let's see. Oh, back on Monday, 42.8 kilowatt hours. Still not quite reaching the high point that we hit last year, which was we did 44.1, I think, on one day around this time last year. But still, we're pumping out some serious energy thanks to the sun, through which of course, that happens through my Budget Safe solar panels. If you end up going with Budget Safe Solar, just use the referral code RTL. That's all I ask there. If you're in or going to be in the greater San Francisco Bay Area with a car that you love, whether it's your Tesla or something else, I cannot recommend stopping by. Well, you got to make an appointment, but make an appointment at Immaculate Reflections here in the greater San Francisco Bay Area. They're offering a nice discount for listeners of this podcast on any service that you book. So maybe you want to do some paint protection film on some of the car, like the front, or maybe the whole thing. Maybe you want to do ceramic coating so that you don't have to wax it for the next 3 to 5 or more years. I'm at the or more part of that now on mine. Maybe you want to do paint correction to get your paint finish looking as good as it possibly can. Maybe you want to mix and match or do a combination. Whatever you want to do, Immaculate Reflections, I promise you, will make your car look better than it ever has. Check them out at irdetailing.com, and that's how you can reach out, is going through irdetailing.com as well. That's where you want to mention that you're a Ride the Lightning listener, and then the discount will be courteously extended to you. Before I scoot out of here, I want to mention my Patreon once again. We are coming up now on the 9-year anniversary of the start of this podcast back on August 2nd, 2015. Let's see, what's the Sunday closest to that this year? So it'll be Sunday, August 4th is when the closest show will release for the 9-year anniversary. But we're coming up on it. We're getting close. And the way that this podcast has been able to continue going every single week is through your generous support. You don't have to. The show will always be free. It always has been. It always will be. You can get it on any of the major podcast services. But if you feel so inclined, you can give back to the podcast. You can support me through Patreon, and specifically my Patreon page, found at patreon.com/Tesla podcast. The support tiers start at just $5 a month. And as you go up into the higher tiers, all the perks and rewards stack. So if you do the maximum plaid tier, you'll get your name shouted out every week. You'll get an invitation every month to the Patreon Zoom Hangout, where we always have a blast. Actually, I need to schedule that for next weekend. Boy, that's the beginning of July is coming right up on us. Cool. Well, I'll look forward to that next weekend. You would also get, at the maximum plaid tier, the weekly lightning round mini episodes, including the entire 100+ archive of those mini episodes. And you also get the early access to each week's podcast. So everything stacks the more you go. But again, the most popular tier is that $10 per month tier to get the early access and those weekly lightning round mini episodes. But anything that you're willing and able to do would be sincerely appreciated. I thank you in advance for your consideration there. As I mentioned a moment ago, you can follow/subscribe to this podcast totally for free. It's not a money thing on any of the major podcast services. And the reason you would want to do that is so that the new episodes get pushed out to you automatically every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific, and you don't have to remember whether it's time to go get a new episode of the podcast or not. So follow/subscribe on any of your favorite podcast services, whether that's Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, or Spotify, or YouTube podcasts as well. Finally, you can email me anytime you like, teslapodcast@gmail.com, if you want to ask a Tesla question or drop me a line for whatever reason. You can follow me on X and or on Instagram. I have the same username on both, and that username is DMC_Ryan. And before I scoot out of here, I just want to do what I promised a few minutes ago, which is give those upper tier, super generous Patreon backers their weekly shout out as one of the perks that they get. I will start at the top of that pyramid with the Roadster in Space tier backers. Big thanks goes out to Pete White, Lyle Austin, Steve Radspinner, Fernando Cordero, Lawton from Chicago, Sean Neidig, Neil Weaver, Jackson Wallace, Rolf and Jennifer Evers, Howard Anthony Smith, Victoria Iacovetto, Tesla Hitchhiker 42, Kara Weston, Robert from near Philly, Kristen Rumble, American Home Contractors, and GetAmber.com. By the way, Steve Radspinner. Steve, if you're still listening here at the end, Steve often will come to the Zoom meeting, the Patreon Zoom Hangout each month. Haven't seen him in a little bit, but Steve, my hope is that by now you've taken delivery of that Cyber Beast that you were waiting for, that Foundation Series Cyber Beast. So I hope, Steve, that you might join us at the next Patreon Zoom Hangout and tell us all about it if indeed you've taken delivery. Thanks as well to the Maximum Plaid backers who are also invited to that Patreon Zoom Hangout each month. They are Jonathan Wales, Cameron Clark, Daniel Grummer, Seth Capello, Nick and Tony, the Galpin family, Ryan from New York City, Darren Nickel, Kaz Barnes, Brett Libano, Patrick Wisniewski, Gil Cabrera, Todd Badger, Joe Edgel, Kevin Yank, the Tesla Owners Club of San Joaquin Valley, Michael Williams, Will Stedman, Justin Perez, Jeremy Harris, Chris Beach, Tom Mills, Corey O'Donnell, Aaron, John Cody, Joel Sapp, Paul Casarino, Richard Corley, Chris Osborne, KB, Doug Carey, Adam Lavoie, ContactOneCallCenter.com, Jason Chalukas, Travis Krenzel, Bruce Otterstein, Tom Behan, Josh Pennington, John from Cream Ridge, New Jersey, Sean Tisdale, Dustin Hart, Michael Gallo, Derek Finley, Charles Clement, Rav, Adam Christie, and Damon Klein. And finally, a big thanks goes out as well to the grandfathered in plaid level supporters. Appreciate your continued support, my friends. Big thanks to George Cassiopo, Logan Willis, Peter Chalet, Eric Randolph, Dory and Steve Guberman, the Tesla Owners Club of Taiwan, Ron Lee, Charlie Gillespie, Dennis Peak, Jeff Angwin, Chase Cabanillas, the Lydia family, Aaron Altschul, Jared Brown, Jerome Strack, Jamie Dalton, Mike and Barbara from Louisville, Matt Nixon, the Tesla Owners Club of Wisconsin, Ish, Not Elon Musk, Peter, and the Bear Boys of Colorado. All right, it's been a fun one here on Ride the Lightning episode 465. Let's see what news we get, what topics we get to discuss next week, because we got the holiday there in the middle of the week. Sometimes that'll slow things down in the world of Tesla, but not always. But I've got a little something planned for you that's out of the ordinary, not part of the usual thing for next week. It's not a vacation show. I will be here. I'm not going anywhere, but a little something that you'll hopefully find fun as part of next week's show. So until then, for a snoring Daisy the Boxer, I am a definitely not yet snoring Ryan McCaffrey. This was Ride the Lightning episode 465. Happy electric motoring, my friends, and I'll see you back here next week.
Elon Musk, people don't like Elon Musk. The guy founded PayPal and Tesla, and people are like, yeah, but he's a troll and a bad dad. I'm like, so was mine. He did nothing to fight climate change. Also, have you been in a Tesla? Have you been in a Tesla? My buddy let me drive his Tesla. I laughed out loud at how fast it went. Been clinically depressed my entire life, on dozens of medications, in a Tesla for 13 seconds, cured forever.
I mean, I think a Tesla is the most fun thing you could possibly buy ever. That's what it's meant to be. Our goal is to make it's not exactly a car. It's actually a thing to maximize enjoyment. It's maximum fun.